Hi, this is Developer Hacks by Nick Leatherland, the webinar. I'm Nick Leatherland speaking. So thank you very much for checking out the webinar. I hope I'm going to give you loads of awesome content throughout this webinar. It's probably going to be about 45 minutes long. I'm going to try and rattle through as much information as I can. Hopefully it's going to have so much content in it. I'm going to hopefully, it's going to be well worth your time to watch this. So thank you very much. Make sure you have a notepad and a pen ready so you can make notes as I go through. And I hope you enjoy it. So, firstly, who am I? If you don't know who I am, I'm the director of Pegasus Property Group, and I'm also the founder of Unity Project. So, Pegasus Property Group is a development company in Stoke-on-Trent. We source properties, we renovate properties, and we do lettings as well. And we do our own portfolio. I've got a business partner called John Colclough, 50-50 business partners. We do our own portfolio, but we also do projects for other people as well. So we've done quite a lot of projects, which I'll get onto later. Unity Project, that's a developer group that I run. We've got about 45 members currently, whilst, as of now, when this webinar's been made, targets to have 50 people in the next couple of weeks. So that's growing nicely. That's a subscription-based group where we all learn and grow together. I was in the Royal Navy for 9 years. I was in the submarine service. So that's where I get a lot of my experience with regards to systemization and organisational skills, because the Royal Navy was very corporate, probably more corporate than corporate. So being a military force, etc. First buy-to-let. So I bought my first buy-to-let when I was 21 years old. I'm 30 now. So I left the Royal Navy last year in 2017. I became a full-time property developer. I've done over 33 back-to-brick projects in 2 years, including flips, buy-to-let, commercial residential conversions, and HMOs. So a lot of this webinar is going to be talking about how I've sourced and renovated so many projects in such a short space of time. And it's obviously to do with systemization and leverage. So I'm not going to teach you to suck eggs, but the developer hacks that I teach are kind of part of my system, which are really important to securing that deal. So I'll go on to that later. Projected to be the biggest HMO specialist letting agency in Cheshire and Staffordshire by the end of year 3 trading, which would be February 2019. That would be the end of year 3 trading. I've written 3 books. The HMO compliance handbooks, that's all about HMO compliance regulations, because of mandatory licensing is coming in this year in 2018. So everyone with 5 or more bedrooms is going to need to be compliant. So I've written a book about that. Commercial to residential conversion guide. So I believe I'm the first person to have written a commercial to residential conversion book. And also I've written a book called The Developer's Refurb Manual, which talks really in depth about all the systems that we use and how we source properties and how we renovate them and how we manage multiple teams, etc. So that's a good book to check out. And also run a developers workshop called the Elite Developers Workshop, which has had hundreds of attendees over the last 2 years. We've got a YouTube channel of over 1,200 subscribers as well. And I also do various free blogs, webinars, videos, etc. that help the community out. So I'm quite given to the property community. If you know who I am already, you know that. If you don't, then thanks for listening to my story. So we're getting with the webinar now, because you're probably bored of hearing about myself. So what are developer hacks? So a developer hack is a phrase that I coined. You may have heard of life hacks. So it's a strategy or technique adopted in order to make one's time or daily activities more efficient. So that could be things like using reminders on your phone, or using a diary, or just something like that. It makes you more organised, and it saves you time as well. This is developer hacks. So it's the same kind of idea. Things that save you time, makes everything more efficient. So I'll talk about techniques that I use to secure deals before my competition do. It's really important. How I accurately analyse a deal, meaning I often find a deal in something someone else might look past, or I find a deal that won't work and I don't waste my time on it any further. So basically, I've done lots of deals where my competitors have probably looked at it, viewed it multiple times, and for whatever reason have not bought it. There could be something wrong with it, or they don't really know what they're doing, or they haven't analysed it properly, or they've missed something when they've analysed it. And I've spotted that thing, and I've seen the profit that could be made, and therefore I've done that deal and they haven't. So that's really important. But also, looking at deals and finding out that they're not going to work is also really important. So you're not wasting your time looking at crap deals, basically, and running around like a headless chicken trying to view everything when half of it's not going to work. So that's really important. So I'm going to talk about that in this webinar. And I'm also going to talk about how I manage multiple building teams. keeping everything on time and on budget as well. And there's a little bit of a bonus content to this webinar. I'm also going to talk about the viewing check-off list that I use. It's part of my system that I use. So when I do viewings, I take a check-off list with me. So you're going to get the deal analyzer and my check-off list for free through this webinar. And in order to get my check-off list, you have to spend over £30 normally through my books. And also my deal analyzer, I sell that for £10 a go. So you're going to get that, over £50, £40, £50 worth of stuff for free basically through this webinar. So I'll tell you how you can get those in a bit. It's a part of the webinar. I'm going to do a live demonstration on how to analyze a deal, and you're going to download the deal analyzer and go through it with me, hopefully at the same time. So moving on. So the core skills of a developer are sourcing deals, analysing deals, and gluing teams together. That's so important. If you can identify what the core skills of a property developer are, I would sum it up as those three things. You source deals, that's your job, or you could use a sourcer. Either way, you need to be able to analyse those deals. Whether someone's sourcing it for you, you need to be able to analyse that deal to make sure they're not bullshitting you. And also, if you're sourcing deals for yourself or other people, you need to be able to analyse those deals. Now, I'm expecting this webinar to be quite popular because deal sourcing is a very popular strategy for people that are getting into property. It's a really good way of making money, and I've made tens of thousands of pounds over the last 2 years through deal sourcing. So I would recommend it to anyone that wants to. If you're starting out and you're trying to raise funds or capital, or you're trying to get into it, deal sourcing is a really good way to go. It does take a lot of time and a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, I would personally say, and that means that a lot of sophisticated investors that are invested in property, they're really looking for people like sources which are reliable, and they're very hard to get reliable sources, and that tends to be because novices do sourcing. Do you know what I mean? So that's why there's no consistency. So if you can make yourself a go-to sourcer in the industry who knows what they're doing, you're going to kick ass, you're going to make money, simple as that. If you've got the deals, people will come. Now, I'm going off a bit of a tangent here, but not every strategy works in every geographical location in the UK or the world. Do you know what I mean? HMOs and high yielding assets work really well up north of England, not so well down south, so I'm told. But in my area, in Stoke-on-Trent, flips are crap. You don't make anything off a flip. Down south you do. So service accommodation works in certain places and not other places. Rent to rent, all those different strategies that people use. And if you don't know what any of this is that I'm talking about, then I've got a book at the end of this webinar which you can check out. So it will explain more of that. But anyway, I'm not trying to sell you anything until the end. But I'll move on quickly. And another core skill is gluing teams together. So as a property developer, you've got the vision and you've got the dream, and you put the team together to make your dreams a reality, or your client's dreams. If you're working for a client doing property, sourcing for them and investing for them to make money yourself as a consultant or whatever, or joint ventures or whatever you want to do, you're gluing a team together, and you're only as strong as your weakest link in your team. Do you know what I mean? So putting a really good team together is really hard, I'd say. And it's taken me a couple of years to find the right people, and even then they're not all perfect. So they're the three core skills of a developer. So let's start with deal analysing then. So top things to consider in deal analysing. So what is deal analysing? So just very quickly, again, don't want to teach you to suck eggs. I don't know what level of knowledge and experience people are that are listening to this webinar, so I'm just going to kind of keep it basic. And if you're quite advanced in property investment, I apologise, but I'm sure you're still going to learn something from this anyway. I always learn something from people, even though I've been doing property for 10 years now. I think I'm fairly experienced, knowledgeable, but I know I'm not. I know when I speak to other people, there's so much stuff I don't know. So I always try to keep an open mind to learn new things. So quickly, these are some of the things on this screen that you can see now, which are like the basics really when it comes to deal analysing. These are all things you need to memorise. So purchase price of a property, quite obvious. Stamp duty, legal costs, so things like conveyancing and searches, you need to take those things into account. Broker's fees, if you're using a bridging or mortgage or whatever, you need to take those into account. If you've got a finder's fee or a sourcing fee, if you're buying it through a sourcing agent. Refurbishment and renovation costs is a big one. How do you work those out? How do you know what it's going to cost to renovate the property? I'm going to get onto that later. I'm going to teach you another really cool developer hack, which is probably the main feature of this webinar, to be honest with you. Project management costs, If someone's project management for you, end valuations, that's like the GDV, the gross development value. So that's what you think the property is going to be worth after you've bought it and renovated it. Because we're property developers, that's what we tend to do. We tend to buy things and renovate them and make them better, hence developing a property. Not to be confused with people that buy turnkey investments. So they're properties which have already been developed by a developer. Those guys are just property investors, really. They're just investing in property, bricks and mortar. So it's important for us to work out what the GDV is. That's really hard. That's the £1 million question. If you knew 100% what the GDV was going to be at the end of a project, everyone would be doing this because it'd be so easy. But that's the point. We don't know. That's the risk factor when you do property development. What's it going to be worth at the end? Have you built enough buffer into that deal that if the GDV doesn't come in quite as what you wanted it to, is it going to put you underwater? You know, these are all things you need to consider. Furniture, appliances, room dressing costs. If a HMO, house of multiple occupation, service accommodation, or if you're staging it because you're going to sell the house, so you have to take those costs into account, furnishing and dressings and appliances. Running costs of the property during refurbishment. Running costs of the property if you plan on keeping it for letting. So you've got to take things into account such as gas, electric, council tax, water, cleaning costs, TV licence, internet, etc. You need to take into account things like rental income. So if you want to keep it and let it out, letting agent costs if you're keeping it for let. If selling, you need to take into account legals and estate agents' fees, insurance costs, lending costs if you're using a bridging loan such as application fees, monthly interest costs, penalty costs if you run over the project, and there's many more. That's just a few of the things that I could think of the top of my head. There's literally, it's how in depth do you want to go? You could have hundreds of things that you take into account. I've not put things on here like voids. People put 10% for voids. People put in like 10% for a maintenance budget going forwards. There's loads of things that you can take into account. Now, that's a lot to consider, right? And a little bit of a story for you. I used to sit outside a property that I've just viewed. This is going back in the day, right? So what was my process back in the day before I kind of like started realising how to make this all more efficient and quicker? Typically I'd go on Rightmove and I'd find like 20 houses that I like the look of, and I'd rock up and I'd do a viewing and I'd walk around and I'd go sit in the car afterwards and I'd have a bit of paper and I'd write all the numbers down. But I wasn't really going into detail. I was just writing the basics down, like what's the purchase price? What do I think it's going to cost to renovate? And that's just a total guess because I didn't know, did I? I was just guessing. What's the rent going to be? I'd base that off, looking at what the rental income was for that area, or just like kind of my knowledge and experience of the area, and I was just doing some really basic overhead figures, and then I was like, yeah, this deal doesn't really work on paper, or yeah, it does. And if it did, I'd then have to call a builder up and say, hey man, can you come and look at this house for me? And they'd say, yeah, I can come over in 5 days' time, 4 days, whatever. They'd come over. Obviously, there's a lot of organisation going on here because I've got to book another viewing, got to try and line it up with the builder. Sometimes they were late, sometimes they didn't turn up at all. Do you know what I mean? They'd walk around and just go, yeah, it's probably 20 grand, but they didn't really know themselves. So I could tell they didn't. They were just walking around and having a guess. And I was thinking, well, I'm guessing as well. So yeah, sure, this guy probably knows a little bit more than me, but there must be a way I can systemize this and make this more efficient. So, why is it important to be a master at analysing and stacking a deal? I can stack and analyse a deal once I have all my key figures in under a minute by entering the data into a spreadsheet. And that does all the maths for me. So this is something I figured out. I was like, hey, I'm sitting out here on a bit of paper outside a property. You can imagine it, can't you? I'm sat there. I'm kind of tired. I'm viewing properties all day. I'm not very good at maths anyway. It's never my strong point, maths. I was always better at, English and literature. And I was using a calculator, and sometimes you'd make a little error on the calculator, or you'd forget to take in a sum. And anyway, it's a very haphazard way of doing it. When you're talking about, investing tens of thousands of pounds, it's kind of crazy, really, that you're doing it that way. And so many people are doing it that way. It kind of blows my mind a little bit. So deal analysing is super important. It's like one of the core skills that you need to have as a developer and an investor. So I figured, let's get a spreadsheet on the go. So I used to do it on a notepad whilst doing viewings. I'd get numbers wrong sometimes, or forget to factor something in, meaning I was potentially investing in bad deals. So I made a spreadsheet to help me to create a hack to quickly analyse deals efficiently and accurately. So, couple top tips. So I can analyse a deal in under 60 seconds basically with my spreadsheets, which I made myself. I had some help off a few people as well, so shout out to those guys if they're listening. Couple tips though: be realistic with your numbers. Don't polish your numbers to make the deal stack better. I'll talk about that when I do the live demonstration on how to analyse a deal. Don't overanalyze. Base your number on facts. Time is money, and you can spend too long on spreadsheets. You need to be looking for deals. Use a deal analyzer spreadsheet to speed time up, not slow you down. That's really important. You know, I know a lot of people that talk about this whole thing where they use spreadsheets to analyze deals, and they get too locked into it because they're like, if I make, is everything correct? Have I forgotten anything? You know, is it true? And they don't have faith in their numbers. And you need to have faith in the numbers. You need to have faith that your numbers are correct and that the ROIs and the yields and all the other bits and bobs that you want to know are factual. And once you've got that confidence, you jump in and make the investment. I think if people have to talk you into doing a deal, it's not for you. You're not ready yet, basically. So you need to get your confidence up. Try to desktop analyze deals before booking viewings in, so you're not wasting time. But don't price yourself out of everything. Still get out there and meet people. Some of the best deals I've found come from coincidences and luck. That's very true. So I know people that desktop analyze deals, and I'm going to show you how to desktop analyze something in a minute. And the numbers don't work basically, so they don't book viewings in. So they're getting really frustrated because they're like, Nick, I'm sitting around all day. I don't do anything but property, and I can't find any deals. Nothing's working right now. And I'm like, man, still go and view stuff though, because you may as well. The whole point is that you're not viewing stuff that you don't need to view. But if you're pricing yourself out of everything, go view it anyway, because you get your face out there and you meet people. And property's a people's business. It's all about people. You know, so you meet estate agents and stuff, and vendors, and sometimes the vendors are landlord themselves, and they're using purple bricks or something, and purple bricks normally make you do the viewings. The vendor does the viewing, so you get to meet the vendor, and sometimes they're a landlord with 10 other houses to sell. Do you know what I mean? And this is how it goes, and so you got to get yourself out there. So moving on. So let's do a deal stacking demonstration. So I normally sell a deal analyzer for £9.97. I've sold hundreds of these over the last 2 years. If you've already bought it and you're watching this webinar, I'm really sorry, but I'm giving it away for free in this webinar. So you can follow me as I conduct a deal stacking demonstration. So I've made a nice and easy link for you to follow, so you can download it. Visit www.pegasuspg.com/deal and download the deal analyzer on there, which is an Excel spreadsheet. As I said, it's free. So if you like it, please leave me a nice Facebook review or subscribe to my YouTube channel or something. That'd be really cool. And you can see down the bottom on the banner what the YouTube URL is and also what the Facebook URL is. So whilst you're doing that, I'm just going to tell you a really quick story. It's actually a deal that I'm currently doing, which I think is pretty fantastic. So I sourced I was driving through town one day and I saw a for sale sign getting put up outside a nightclub. Which is quite a well-known nightclub in town. It's near the train station, so it's a really good location by the university, etc. They're doing a £21 million regeneration project near this nightclub. So, you know, I'm driving past and I see someone putting a for sale sign up. So I've called the agent on the board immediately and said, like, what's it on for? You know, what's the information? And he gave me all the information over the phone. It was on for 250k. He told me what the square footage of the whole building was, all that kind of good stuff. And I said, I want to view that, like now, today, basically. And he says, can you be there in an hour? And I said, I'm outside it now waiting. So I sat there for an hour. I got a coffee and I quickly analysed it using my spreadsheet, which you're downloading right now. So, you know, I put all the numbers in, purchase price, all this kind of stuff. And you might be thinking, how does he work out things like how many units are going to be in there? How does he work out what it's going to cost to renovate? You know, and I'm going to tell you how to do all of that in this webinar, which is all part of an important process where I'm able to actually analyse a deal whilst I'm sat in my car outside, you know, outside a building that I've just literally driven past. So I knew that I'd get about 32 HMO rooms in this building, and I also knew that the build cost would be about £500,000 based on conversion costs, which I'm going to teach you later. Now, that allowed me to work out things like the GDV, so I could get the gross rental income per annum, so 32 rooms times, you know, £425 a month, for example. You know, that gave me whatever per month, times that by 12 to get it per annum. And then I did a conversion calculator to, a commercial lending calculator to work out what the GDV would approximately be. So with all these headline figures in hand, I was able to walk around the building knowing that it was already a deal that was going to stack, basically. It was going to work. So I've literally walked around and gone, I'll have it. We secured that at full asking price. The reason we gave them full asking price was because we had two options. Option one was we give you 200 grand for it. Option two was, well, why don't we do this subject to planning? We get planning permission on it and we give you 250. It would take us about 6 months to get planning, so you're going to make 50 grand for waiting 6 months. And he's gone, yeah, brilliant, okay. So he's taken the second option, of course, as everybody would. So we've spent about £10,000 on planning. In the end, we got 18 HMO rooms in 4 apartments. So we got way knocked down from 32, but you know, the deal was kind of on the edge whether it'd still work or not based on those numbers, and it just about does. So we then got a RICS valuation carried out. It's been valued at £380,000 in its current condition, and they reckon it'd be worth about £1.165 million when it's finished. So we've gone to a lender and they would lend us 70% of the market value of £380,000. So that is £266,000. So that means £266,000 gets given to us. We give £250 to the vendor, thank you very much, and £16,000 is left. That pays for our planning. The RICS survey, the RICS valuation we had to get done cost £3,000 as well, and some other legal costs. They will also then 100% fund the build cost of about 500k, and then we're left with a £1.165 million project, which will, after we refinance it, the bridges get all their money back. We're left with, you know, between 25 and 30% equity, and we get 45k a year net profit coming in off this building, which has been effectively a no money down deal. So that's why this is so important. I was able to do all of that in a couple of minutes on a spreadsheet while sitting in my car. You know, so this is a very powerful, you know, thing to learn. So this is what you just downloaded, hopefully. Your numbers might look a little bit different to mine, but just to give you a quick walk around, there is an instructional video up here with a link. So if you watch that, it will give you way more in-depth, you know, kind of lesson on how to use this. But I'm going to give you a quick overview because I'm just conscious of, you know, how long this. I don't want this webinar to run on for too long. Even though I'm hoping you're really enjoying it and you think the content's great. You know, I've got other things to do as well. So, right, this is your main bit up here. So you've got purchase price up here. So this is a real deal, by the way. This is a real deal that we've done. So somebody called me last week, said I've got two flats in a large Victorian house that I'm thinking of selling. He wants 120k. I've gone and viewed it, and I'm thinking, wow, I can get 6 bedrooms all en suites in here as a HMO, dead easy. It's a really good location. And he said he would take 110. So I think he might take a little bit less, but you know, that's kind of what we've agreed on. I've put a £3,500 sourcing fee on this. I'm going to source this on to someone else. I put £1,000 in for legals. Bridging costs you can put in there if you want to. Stamp duty, calculate yourself, you know, so that goes in there. That should be resi. HMO licenses, will need a HMO license when mandatory licensing comes in. So I put 550 quid in for 5-year license, that goes there. This is your conversion cost bit down here. So you put in what you think the property is going to cost to renovate. Again, I've mentioned a few times, how do you work out what it's going to cost to renovate? I'm going to get onto that later in the webinar, which is hopefully for you kind of groundbreaking information. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Furniture. So I've actually got another spreadsheet that I use. So I use that for estimating like quotes for my clients. So I put in how many bedrooms there are, how many bathrooms there are, you know, or how many dressing packs are required, all that kind of stuff, how many appliances, and it basically adds it all up for me, including my profit margins and all the rest of it, labour costs and everything, for fitting everything, and it tells me what the cost is. So that's pretty accurate. So I put that in there. Project management, 12%. That's what I'll be charging. That includes VAT. So total cost is, if you did this unleveraged, 220k. So most of the 6-bed all-en-suite projects that I do vary between 200 and 220k. You know, if you was doing it all in, all cash. And then up here on the top right, you got initial purchase capital required. So you can put in, so this would need to be a cash deal because the property is knackered. When I say cash, that could be like bridge or cash. You know, same thing really. What it means is you're not buying it with a mortgage because it's unmortgageable, basically, in its current condition. Professional fees, so that's added up all those bits basically. So it's added up your finders, legals, stamp, etc., and put it into there for you. Building costs, that's added up basically your build costs there and your project management, etc. So that adds that up into there for you. Boom. Refinance model, we'll get onto that in a bit. That's kind of the bit at the end. So next we come down to the income and expenses per month. So this is where you put in basically this confuses a lot of people. Basically you got a sliding scale of room levels. So starting off with like minimum is 350 in Stoke, that's like for a shared bathroom HMO room. Average is 375. High, this is non-ensuite by the way. And then you've got like low ensuite, medium, high, very high if the room's really big. So that's how I do that. So this is more of a HMO calculator, but you can use it for single lets as well, because you could just put one there for example and change that to whatever. So you put in your number of rooms and it works it all out for you. It tells you the gross rental income per month. You can put in a void calculator. Some people like to use 10%. I use 5% because that's, well, to be honest with you, occupancy rate's very high. So I could actually probably put that as 2%, but 5% is fair. So that basically takes off that void for you, and then it gives you that. So that's more realistic. Expenditure-wise, so you could put in a mortgage here bit if you wanted to. Running costs of the building. So some of this is estimated, obviously, but we know council tax is 90 quid. Heating and electricity is typically £50. Water, broadband, TV licence, insurance, etc. 5% building maintenance fund. So it's a bit like the void calculator. So it's taking off 5%. Cleaner, you're going to need a cleaner for HMO. £15 per hour plus that's typically what you'd be paying. So it adds up all your monthly bills. Management, 12%, including VAT is what we charge. Some people charge 15%, whatever. That takes that off for you, gives you that number. So that's your bills and your management added up. And it takes it off the gross rental income and it gives you that net there. Times 12 is that per annum. And that's the ROI, just under 10% ROI. Gross yield is obviously ridiculous. Gross yield, I always say to people, ignore that. It doesn't matter. The net yield is what you want. 19% net yield is ridiculously high. So that's very nice. But, as property developers, we probably want to get all of our money out of a deal, don't we? We want to get as much money back as we can. So this is where you come up to this refinance model bit up here. So this bit is fairly important. You put in the GDV there. So you might say, so like your core numbers really are like your purchase price, your renovation cost, your rental income, probably your bills going out if it's a HMO or whatever, and then your refinancing bit, so what the GDV is. That's really important. How do you know what it's going to be? Well, because I've done so many projects in the last couple of years and refinanced them, I know what the numbers are. So I'm not really guessing too much. But if you're new to an area or you don't really know the area very well, I'll just ask local people. This is based on bricks and mortar. You've got bricks and mortar and you've got commercial valuations. They're two different things. Commercial valuations is actually valuing the property more as a business. So it's based on its income, its business income. So the rental income that property is making, they work out what they think it's worth off that. Whilst bricks and mortar is what the house is worth. It's just, as the bricks and the mortar of the house, basically, the basic part, So the big argument is when people do things like HMO, it's like, they want to get commercial valuation as part of their strategy, so that so it's worth more money, the GDV is higher, therefore they get more money back out of the deal. So if this deal, I've based it on bricks and mortar. Reason being is that some clients can't get commercial valuations because it's their first ever HMO, and a lot of them won't get a high income multiplied sort of valuation. So they end up with bricks and mortar. So if you were doing this bricks and mortar and you did it 75% loan to value, that means the new mortgage would be 150k. So you leave 70k of your money tied up in a deal like this. You're not going to get all your money out. You could take it to 85% LTV, leave 50k in the deal, but most people would do 75%. I know that there's lenders out there like Kent Reliance and people like that will do 85% LTV. So 70k left in the deal, so it tells you how much capital is released. And then basically if you put your interest in, it'll work out what your interest payment is going to be per month, which will be 512 quid. and then obviously it's going to recalculate because you've got a big mortgage on it now. It's going to take that off. Basically, what was that number down there? It's now that number there. So you've basically lowered your you've got that money back there, and you've lowered your cash flow per month, and it's costing you £500. So it's quite cheap, really. It's quite a cheap loan, effectively, if you look at it that way. And that's it per annum. It's actually a new ROI. Most people go for over 20% ROI as a minimum, and that's your new net yield. So it's almost halved it, well, less than halved it. So that's basically deal analysing. I touched earlier on a few things like don't polish your numbers, don't spend too long on an analyzer. The whole point of this is that when you know what you're doing and you can do it quicker, you should be able to analyse a deal in 60 seconds on it. It should be very quick and easy. And what I mean by don't polish your numbers is that 20%, nearly 21% ROI is quite nice, but you might think, well, I want more. So you start looking for things like, well, 450 is average. What if I got 3 average and 3 high end? Oh, look, ROI just jumped up. Oh, what if I, what if I make that 40 quid? What if I make that 40 quid? Do I need a really good internet package? Maybe I could get a cheaper internet package. Oh, look, it's the ROI is going up and the yield. What else can I? Do you know what I mean? I can probably get management for 10%. To be honest with you, I get a crappy agency, and I could probably get a mate to do cleaning for me for £10 an hour. So that's only 40 quid a month. What's the ROI? Oh, look, and so it goes, and you can do, and basically, you can look at the refurb and go, well, it's 75k really, but I've got £5 contingency, but if all goes well and I don't use the contingency, it's gonna, and then suddenly, do you know what I mean? And now you go, well, my minimum was 25% ROI, so I'm going to buy this deal. Next thing you know, this has cost you £85,000 because you screwed it up somehow, and you didn't get the maximum. In fact, you got 3,425 a month and 3 at 450, and they are using loads of gas and electricity, and you underestimated it, and the tenant's complaining about the internet. It's not good enough, and your mate who's £10 an hour is absolutely crap, and they're not doing a good job of it, and you end up getting a professional team in, and the 10% per month letting agency we use them are really crap, so you end up using the 12%, and now your deal's gone below 20% ROI, and you've left all this extra money in the deal. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to say. Don't basically be conservative with your figures. If you're too conservative, you price yourself out of everything, you won't do any deals. So you've got to have a middle ground where basically it's all down to risk factor. Every investor's got a different level of risk. So you need to work out what your risk factor is, what you feel comfortable with risk-wise. So that is deal analysing. So I hope that was cool. I'm just going to put all the numbers back to how they were before, because I'm going to come back to this a little bit later. Okay, that's us back to how we were before. Happy days. Right, so back to the webinar. So next we're going to talk about calculating the renovation costs. So I've mentioned this a few times throughout the webinar. Whilst I was slacking the deal, how do you work that out? So let's have a quick drink, excuse me. So everyone else is viewing the property, they're doing the maths, they're coming back for a second and third viewing with their builder mate. Basically, you're dragging your builder mate along with you for a viewing. And he's only having a guess at the cost as well. It's possibly saying it's actually going to be cheaper to win the work. And a lot of them will put extras on at the end to make the money back. In the meantime, I've actually secured the deal because I've worked out estimated conversion cost myself. I've desktop analysed it. I've viewed it as a formality to make sure it checks out, and I've secured the deal. So, bullet points, dragging builders around properties you are thinking of putting offers in on that you probably haven't even analysed yet, so it might not even stack. They're not going to be too happy with you after they've viewed 3 or 4 houses and they've made no money for doing this. You're not paying them to cut, you could offer to pay them, to be fair, but you probably won't. You probably expect them to do it for free because they might win the work. And trust me, you will lose lots of good builders that way by doing that because you're just wasting their time. Analyse the deal first, secure the deal first, then get them to come round and look at it. And how do you secure the deal when you don't know what the renovation is going to cost? I'm going to tell you how to do that. So your builder mate probably isn't going to be able to accurately calculate the build cost down to the penny, and he'll likely be guessing himself anyway. So they're not exactly the most reliable person to take around with you, to be honest. So why don't we cut out the middleman and have an educated guess ourselves? I mean, the builder who is guessing will be working off a formula of some sort, in my experience anyway. So why don't we create our own formula? And what I mean by that is they'll be walking around looking at the size of the building, and they'll be calculating costs in their head, like materials and labour, and they know how long they could look around a building. Like an experienced builder could look around and go, well, I can see how big the rooms are, and I know it would take a painter a week to paint this many rooms, and that's going to cost me this much in wages, and that's going to probably take about 5 tubs of paint, and they're doing it in head as they walk around if they're good, based on their experience essentially. Smaller projects like bathrooms or kitchen, I would just rely on a builder to quote for me because it's such a small thing. But larger projects, so £20,000 plus projects, I'd want to get a quantity surveyor to create a report and a schedule of works for me so I can put the job out to tender. So I just mentioned the quantity surveyor there. So you might have heard of that before, you might not have heard of that. So I'm going to talk about that more because he's a really important part of my team, and I'll explain why. You need to be able to find a deal, analyse that deal accurately and secure it before other people do. It's a race to secure that deal. Think of it like that. Relying on third parties such as builders to come in and do quotes takes time, and by the point I've already secured the deal and you're still waiting for that builder to call you back, I've already secured it. I've secured it. I know I'm going to secure that deal before I've even seen it. I've desktop analysed it. I've done all my numbers. I'm only viewing stuff that's going to stack. That's going to be a deal basically, and I'm going in there as a formality to quickly look around, and I'm securing it basically. So how do I calculate conversion costs? You may or may not have heard of a QS. Well, you have because I mentioned it previously, a quantity surveyor. Essentially, it's someone who quantifies what materials you need for a project down to the brick and screw. Some will also calculate labour costs for you based on national averages. I rely on this professional to produce me a costing for a project and a schedule of works as opposed to the builder. They cost around £500 up to £1,000 depending on where you are in the UK. It's no good getting this person in until you secure the deal. So we're going to go into like a prelim calculation to work out a rough estimate and back it up with a QS support later on once we've secured the deal. So the kind of process is you've seen the deal online, you've desktop analysed it, you're using these conversion calculations I'm going to teach you to work out what you think the conversion cost will be to renovate it essentially. You're booking in the viewing, you go in there, you know it's going to work on paper, you go in there to look around and just confirm it's, layout wise it's okay for you, or look, you want to just look at the area, you just want to have a quick look at the building to see if there's any structural issues, which is in my viewing check-off list, which I'm going to talk about later. And now you've secured the deal. Now you're going to get a builder in to come in and have a look, because he might spot something that you didn't see structural wise. You're going to get the QS in now because you've secured this deal, it's your deal. So now you're going to spend money getting these people to come in and look at things for you. Until that point, you don't do it. You don't get a home buyer's report on a house you're buying until you secured it, do you? That would be mad to do that. So there's an order of things, and that's the order. Secure the deal first, get the people in, pay for those people. So moving on, how do I work out the conversion cost without a builder or a QS? So you may have heard people saying things such as it costs about £1,200 a square metre, to build a house, or £1,800 a square metre to build a house, depends where you are in the UK, or what the spec is, what the finish is like, etc. Well, that is working out the cost to build that house per square metre, from everything from foundation, services, all your electrics, plumbing, joinery, windows, carpet, painting, decorating, etc., etc. If you could get that whole house and cut it into little square metre blocks, that's like the average cost per square metre to build that property from the ground up. So the same numbers exist for doing buy-to-lets and flips and HMOs and commercial to residential conversions and everything really to do with building something, or it's got a conversion cost associated with it. But people don't really talk about that a lot. People talk about it in a new build or an extension variety. You don't hear people talking about it very often when they talk about things like flips and buy-to-lets and HMOs. So a QS will break it down for you into the cost to literally plaster 1 square metre of wall, including materials and labour. He'll work out the cost to paint 1 square metre of wall, including paint and labour. supply and fit 1 metre of skirting board, etc., etc. If you add all these sums up, you get a magic number, i.e. if you multiply the total square metre of the building by that magic number, you get a rough conversion cost. So a QS report is like an Excel spreadsheet, and it will have everything detailed that needs doing. It's like a list of jobs that need doing, windows, roof, how many windows, and it gives you all the costs associated with all the labour and all the materials, all broken down to the last screw and brick. It's a very detailed report. It's really important when you're doing a property development to have a report like that, not relying on the builder to guess. And they might be, like I said earlier, doing it, telling you it's going to be cheaper than it actually is because they want to win the work off you. So this is like a third party, neutral person that comes in and does this report for you. There's no hidden agendas or anything. So, really good person to have in your team, basically. So before I get onto what my magic numbers are, which are going to help you with analysing deals, just a bit of a disclaimer. So we're not quantity surveyors. The guy that we use has been to university and he's got a degree and he's been doing it for over 20 years. I don't pretend to know what he knows. If I did, I wouldn't need him. But again, being a developer is about gluing that team together and utilising them for their skill sets. But it's good to know a little bit about everyone's job. That's kind of important when you're the leader and you're the glue putting a team together. You do need to know a little bit about everyone else's jobs, but don't pretend to know everything about everyone else's jobs because people will dislike you if you think like that. Costs vary across the UK. Materials vary depending on what spec you use as well. So you set the spec to you're the client, you set the spec to the builder. So depending on what spec you want, if you want gold-plated taps, and that's not going to work on these conversion costs because this is based on averages. So my magic numbers are based on national UK averages, an average spec. So it's not really cheap or really expensive. It's kind of in the middle, and it doesn't include large items such as roofs or windows or external doors, major structural issues. Rather, this acts as a bit of a baseline for me to estimate the costs on an old Victorian era house or a commercial building that I want to modernise for a flip or a HMO, residential use, whatever. So like I said, it's a baseline. So this allows me to get a base cost of that project, and then I can add things on like windows and roofs because they're quite easy to work out on their own sort of thing, which I'll get onto later. So my costs include back to brick, all internals. It's a rewire with white plastic plug sockets and switches, chrome directional spotlights on the ceilings, new heating system with an OK boiler like a Baxi or a Ferroli, joinery, plastering, a nice Howden's kitchen with a tiled splashback, decent bathrooms that are fully tiled, nice carpet and laminate flooring, white emulsion finishes with some feature walls and gloss throughout. So before I get onto the conversion costs, just so you get an idea, this is some pictures of some properties that we've done, so you can kind of get a feel for what the finish is like. So we do a lot of neutral colours like grey carpet and grey walls, and we bring colour to the room through things like frozen cushions because you can remove them and replace them when the colours come and go in fashion. In the bottom two pictures is more of a high-end hotel boutique executive finish, but the bottom left picture has got a cumulus, which I think means cloud grey, on three of the walls with the darker slate grey feature wall behind, with symmetrical wall art, and the bedding and the cushions are laid out all in a symmetrical manner, which makes it look quite nice. And then these are some lounge spaces that we do, for example. So it's just giving you a bit of an idea. Kitchen, top left, metro tile splashback, white gloss, Howden's, nothing special really. It's pretty standard, trade style kitchen. It's got laminate flooring, and you can see the bathrooms are fully tiled. Bottom left is a vanity unit with a towel rad, and there's a mirror there behind the sink, which is like a bespoke cut to length mirror. And that shower tray on the bottom left is about 1200 by 800 mil, and the 1200 dictates the length of the bathroom, and the width is 800 shower tray with the toilet in the middle and the sink to the side. So it's probably about 2.2 meters maybe by 1200, 1.2 meters. So that gives you a rough idea of the size of that ensuite. And then bottom right is another kitchen with spotlights in the ceilings. Again, same sort of one as the other kitchen, top left, Howden's finish. So these are the magic numbers. So a buy-to-let, a flip, and a small house share with 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom sort of thing is about £200 a square metre. So if you get the total floor space of that building and times that by £200 a square metre, that would give you a rough idea. So a normal mid-terrace 2-bedroom Victorian property is normally around 100 square metres. So it's 20 grand basically to flip it to a good standard or do a HMO. If you're doing a HMO, you might have to put another £50 per square metre on, so it'd be more like £25,000. And that's because you've got things like fire doors and interlinked smoke alarm systems, and you'd probably want to do it at a slightly higher quality than if you was doing a flip. If you're doing a flip, then you want to increase your profit margin, so you're going to try and keep it more economy, whilst obviously doing it properly and making it look nice and not doing a bodge job of it. You're still not going to put the nicer fixtures and fittings in that you would with a HMO, because you're going to keep a HMO for a long period of time hopefully, and you want it to last longer, so you'd spend a little bit more on it. Next one down, 5 and 6 bed all ensuite HMOs, £450 to £600 per square metre. So the extra 50 to 150 for higher spec is area dependent. So in Stoke we normally do 450 to 500. I know people in different parts are spending like 600 to 650, so it's all area dependent. If you're not too sure what, because you're in different areas and what it's going to be, look at what other projects people are doing and what they've spent. Find out what the total floor space is. I'll tell you how to do that in a minute, and it will tell you will get a feel for what people are spending around you. And you could do this as a bit of an exercise. Go to a networking event or go on Facebook or social media or whatever, or just talk to people that are doing properties and just say, hey, how much is that costing you? What is it? Oh, it's a flip, it's costing me 20k. Okay, make a note. What are you doing? I'm doing a HMO, all en suite. Oh, what's the spec like? Yeah, it's really high end. Okay, how much is that costing you? And you write all this stuff down, and you start finding out what all the floor space areas are of these buildings, and you're going to get some of these sums yourself basically, and then you can use that to work out yourself the conversion cost on a potential property investment very quickly, desktop analysing it without having to get a builder to go and look at it for you. Commercial to residential conversion, 650 to 750 per square metre. So this varies depending on planning requirements and conditions, and they might have things like insulation upgrading, they might have things like document E, which is soundproofing. All these things you've got to take into account. Extensions and new builds, like I mentioned earlier, this is the most common one spoken about. £1,200 to £1,500 a square metre, £1,800. It depends on the spec and location. But this is where it all came from. People used to speak about new builds, and I used to go, there must be a similar number for doing flips, and there is. So, other extras that you need to know. So I created a handy viewing check-off list, which I mentioned a few times, which includes a reminder of cost per square metre. So you can take this to you with a viewing basically on a tablet or print it off or whatever you want to do. I'd recommend using a tablet because it's better, it's systemised, right? So you want to be paperless if you can help it. So it breaks things down into more detail. So it's the cost per square metre for like plastering and joinery and painting, how much it costs to supply and fit a door, like a fire door, and it really allows you to work out the cost more accurately, like a QS would basically. So details on how you can get that are going to be near the end of the webinar. So just to quickly go a little bit more on about that. So the reason I've done it in this manner is that I want to quickly analyse the deal in 60 seconds, desktop analyse it. I want to go and view it, and when I'm viewing it, I'm now being more detailed. So I'm actually in the building now. So the whole point of getting up to this point was that I want to get into the building that I know is going to work. I'm not wasting my time. I'm looking at just good deals all day, and I'm securing all good deals. I'm therefore being way more productive. It's a developer hack, right? That's what this webinar is about. So I'm there, and I'm now going to work out in more detail what the conversion cost is going to be, so it's more accurate, so that when I do put my offer in, I'm confident that I'm not just guessing basically, or I missed something really important. So on my view and check off list, I've got some approximate costs. For example, a new roof is like £5,000, new windows are about £300 each for like double glazing, external doors are about £600, more if you're using composite. An FD 530 door is about £220 to supply and fit. Loft conversion, 15 to 20k, up north prices, up to 30k with dormer and bathroom. So there's my check-off list has got all this stuff on it and more. It's broken it right down into per square metre to paint a wall, etc. So you can be quite accurate really. So anyway, you get the idea. So from the comfort of my own home, I can very quickly work out the conversion and renovation cost for a project. It's not bulletproof, and you still need to view it to check anything structural. But my point is that you can desktop analyse the deal, only a few deals that will work, so it's saving you more time to find more deals. You're turning up as a formality to check it's all good, using my check-off list hopefully, or you can make your own so you don't forget things, and getting it secured. You can back your figures up later with proper QS reports. So up to this point, you're just guessing, right? You're getting the deal secured. That's the whole point of this exercise. You then get the QS in to double check it and confirm that the numbers are correct or you're wrong. And if they're wrong, and sometimes you are wrong, you have to pull out the deal. It's just the way it goes. Don't feel too bad about it, because whenever you buy something, you'll always buy it subject to surveys. And those surveys include structural surveys and QS surveys. And do you know what I mean? So you're not going to lose face by going, well, I thought it was going to cost 20 and it's going to cost 50. Sorry, I can't do it. You might even be able to go in and renegotiate and get more knocked off. I don't know. But that's how it goes. So your competition is still doing the maths and calling builders to come and have a look. And you've already secured this deal. That's really cool, right? I hope you think that's cool. So I've done 33 plus deals like this, and only a few didn't work out because of structural stuff. Me or no one else would have even noticed it until a full structural survey was conducted. And my builder, 20 years experience, didn't even notice these structural issues either. So that, is a bit of a shit happens kind of situation. So how do you get the total square metre of a building? So as it says on here, the EPC register online, or from an agent's brochure. If it's commercial, it normally be in feet, so you want to convert that into metres. So you might have to go measure it yourself. Do you know what I mean? You might have to go there and get a tape measure out. In which case, that's not really practical, because you can't really desktop analyse it that well. You'd have to just totally guess the conversion cost and work it out when you get there yourself. But that might be the way you have to do it, unfortunately. If the deal looks like it's going to be really good and there is no information online for you to download, you're going to have to go old school and you have to go there and do it yourself. So in which case, you're going to give it a quick conversion calculator on site to determine if it stacks or not. So using the EPC register online, so go to the EPC register website, epcregister.com, select retrieve report by property address, put the postcode in, download the EPC, check the top right hand corner for the total floor space. If you're looking at a property on Rightmove, then you need to go on Google Maps, go to Street View, work out what the door number is manually. So basically, if you go on Google and put an EPC online, it will come up with the EPC register website there. On the left-hand side menu here, you've got retrieve report using property address. So you can put in here, I'll put in one of my own HMOs. What is it again? ST47JR. This isn't mine, by the way, I just picked a random one. So yeah, you just download it, open. And there it is, total floor space, 79 square metres. It tells you all this information. I'm not really bothered about all that stuff. But yeah, 79 square metres. Pretty cool, right? Sorry, I'll just... So yeah, 122 square metres. So that's basically how that works. So I'm just going to try and... I don't know what's going on here. Really sorry about this. Close. There we go. So yeah, back to the webinar. Sorry about that. So there it is. And it tells you it 110 square metres or whatever. So if we just go back to that deal analyzer that I was talking about before, there's a check-off list. I'll get onto that in a bit. £80,000. So basically, if I get a calculator out, which I've got in my hand right now, you could do this as well potentially. If you get, say, 110 square metres, I think this building's a bit bigger actually. I think this building's about 130 square metres in total. If you get £80,000, you divide that by 130 square metres, you do it backwards, that's £650 a square metre. So this has got like roof works and all new windows and stuff. So if you did 130 square metres times £450, so that's nearly £60,000. So that's like my baseline. So I've basically, this guy's called me up with this property and said, do you want to buy it? And I'm like, let me have a look. And I've desktop analysed this. I've put the postcode in, the address, got downloaded the EPC. It's told me it's 130 square metres in total. I've then done £450 a square metre. It's given me, say, 60k as a baseline figure. And then I've gone there. So I've desktop analysed this and put £60,000 in. It looks really good, it's a really good deal. He wanted 120. I've gone there, seen the roof is knackered and it's got all single glazed windows. To be fair, I could see that from Google Maps anyway, like Google Street View. So I've basically rocked up and added on like another £5,000 for a roof, and I've got counted all the windows up, £300 a piece. You know, external doors, I've added another 5 grand on as well. So that's £70,000, and then I've added another 10k on as a contingency as well, just in case. So that's how I've done that deal. So that's how I've analysed that deal from my desktop. So by the time I've got there, I've already known what I'm going to go see. I'm doing it as more of a formality. So hope that makes sense. So yeah, a quick case study. So I kind of just did that actually. So the EPC set I just showed you is from a real project. So we secured it for 120k, the purchase price. Direct defender, the EPC said 110 square metres a total, which was there in the red square. So that's off a real property that we did. So the quote came out at £65,000, meaning the conversion cost was £590 per square metre. This project included a lot of extras which drove the price up, but if you based it off £500 per square metre, which is an average finish for an all-en-suite HMO, would have been around 55k. So that's what I'm saying. So you work out the baseline using a conversion calculator, and then you add extras on, windows, roof, structural stuff on top of it, to give you a bit of an idea, extensions, you know, loft conversions, all those extras. So congratulations, you now know how to properly analyse a deal and work out a fairly accurate renovation cost, all from the comfort of your sofa. Now you're only viewing the relevant properties that are actually going to work for you, meaning you've just supercharged your time and became much more efficient. So I'm going to run through that viewing check-off list with you in 1 minute. I just wanted to show you a few things that basically I'm selling. So, you know, it is a free webinar. I've tried to put loads of content in here for you. I'm aware that a lot of other webinars are just waffle and they don't really give you anything, and it's a waste of time. So I hope this has actually been really useful. So the whole point of me doing this free webinar is to try and sell you some stuff. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'll just get straight into it. If you're interested in this stuff, that's really cool. If you're not, no worries. I'm not going to force anything on you. I'm just hoping you enjoyed this webinar more than anything. I tried to give a lot of my time to the community. I asked for very little in return. So, you know, if you hang around to the end, I'm going to show you this free viewing check-off list thing as well, which is really cool. I'll go through it in detail on how to use it. So there's a little bit more left to this webinar, so don't tune out yet. Bonus content. So I gave you that free deal analyzer, like I said. I've got about 5 other deal analyzers that I use for different strategies. And I've got that viewing check-off list as well, which I'm going to show you in a sec. Got a project inspection check-off list. I've got loads of quantity survey reports, floor plans and spec sheets, which are all real deals that I'm doing. I've got how to put a tender pack together, which is how you basically put a project out to tender to builders. So it's a really important part of being a property developer. How to find and manage good building teams, plus loads more content. So you can find out how to get access to all that material by buying my ebook, The Developer's Refurb Manual. It's only £3.99, and you can buy it through PayPal, through the website, just by a bit going on there. pegasuspg.com/refurb manual. It's on there. Also, Unity projects. I mentioned that at the start of this webinar. So I also run a property developers community called Unity Project. So we've got over 45 members now. It's an exclusive subscription-based group. All levels of experience are welcome. We've got people who are just starting out in property, and we've got people with multi-million-pound portfolios in the group. So what do we do? What's the whole point of it? So we have monthly meetups, and we have seminars from industry experts. We also do masterminding sessions. That's where we sit around the tabletop and everyone has like 20 minutes each, and you talk about whatever you need help with, and the whole group sits there and helps you. It's really good. It's really good for things like accountability, getting answers to complicated questions, getting opinions from the group, deal analysing, putting a deal on the table and saying, I'm thinking of doing this deal. And we've got a big group of people there all analysing that deal for you as a team. So it's really cool. We do exclusive online webinars like this just for the group. And we also do online masterminding. So if you can't make the in-person stuff, we do it online too. We've got a WhatsApp group and a private Facebook group. So really good. You've got instant access to questions, answers to your questions, or just chit chat or whatever you want to do. Getting to know people and building relationships with other people in the group. Loads of JV opportunities, joint venture opportunities. Got potential, angel investors in there as well. It's a great place for education and great networking. So join us now and expand your business and get help from our great community. So if you want to join that, just go to the website www.unitycommunity.co.uk. Thank you. And finally, Pegasus Property. So this is what I'm mainly known for. This is my development company, Pegasus Property. Basically, we do things like investing in property for our clients. A lot of our clients are overseas, so from all around the world. We source properties and we renovate and we let it for people in a one-stop service. So it's hands-free, stress-free investment service. We also run a developers workshop. It's either in a group capacity or it's one-to-one. So you can do whichever one you want. If it's group, we do them on Saturdays every couple of months. And they're only limited to 12 spaces. If you want to do a one-to-one tour, they do cost more money, but it can be whenever you want it to be. And it's a really good way. You get to meet me and my business partner, and for a full day, we'll take you around all the projects we can and just tell you everything we can about property development. We've had hundreds of people come on these tours over the last 2 years. We show everyone behind the scenes on how we run the company. We discuss more about developer hacks, like we told you today. We've got loads more developer hacks than this. This is nothing. So we show everyone various projects, explaining how we source and project manage the renovations. So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to talk about the view and check off list in a sec. So email, obviously, nick@pegasuspg.com if you want to email me directly, and that's my office number as well, 01782 454 986. So finally, just onto this view and check off list that I mentioned. This is what it looks like. So I put this together myself. Just I kept going to viewings and I kept forgetting things because the vendor was chatting to me or whatever, or I'm just getting sidetracked because my phone's going off and all sorts is happening. And yeah, it says here, check external, check roof for flip tiles and bowing, check the roof at the back, check the flashing around the chimney, guttering and downpipes, window condition, door condition, Japanese knotweed, gates and fences, asbestos if you can spot it. You got internals here, check for damp, check doors and windows, mold caused by ventilation, make a note of room sizes, check ceiling heights. You get the idea. It's all there. Loads and loads of stuff. You can have this for free. I'm happy to send it to you. Just send me an email on nick@pegasuspg.com like you saw on the last screen. Selling price, market value, gross rental income, net yield, refurb estimate 30k. So I'll just bang those in there as well. Basically, I'll just save that. Obviously, I'll put the agent's name, date, and property address in. I'll just save all that stuff. And it goes into my Dropbox folder where I can check, I can look back on it later. But yeah, that's that really. So thank you very much for watching this webinar. I hope it was useful. I've obviously got to go now because I've got people texting me, asking me where I am. So thank you very much. Take care. Bye.